Um, Hello. Oh, nice crowd. Yes, I'm supposed to stand here, by the way. So this is Akio Tanaka from Headline. And actually, we're here to actually share with you some interesting event that's happening in Kyoto next month. But today we're also framing that in a very important theme for Taiwan, which is, here we are in the Taiwanese startup community. And we always felt Taiwan has a great teams, great technology, great engineers. But unfortunately, market is too small. So when Headline, like us, we landed here not too long ago, we started thinking, okay, what can we do? We felt, okay, in the old days, I guess, a lot of Taiwanese startup decided to go China because it's a big market. But as you know, China has a different internet system from Taiwan. So it doesn't quite translate well. And of course, all the restrictions surrounding internet economy doesn't make it easy. So then what do we have though? Right next to Taiwan, we have this market called Japan. It's the third largest market in the world. And we have built, Japan's economy, internet economies, is built on the same infrastructure that Taiwan uses. We have AWS, we have Google, and all the tools that Taiwanese developers are already used to, you can actually build for services in Japan. And so we thought this is actually a great opportunity for Taiwan startups. And today, what we are hoping to share is that I'm just talking about concept, but there are guys here who's actually already done it. And there are increasingly growing number of Taiwanese venture startups going to Japan to go after a big market. And I have an interest secret to share with you. And I hope there's no one from Japan except me. So Japan's a great market, but they don't have many engineers. So because of this shortage, there's actually advantage. For example, Alex's company, our portfolio, 17 Live, has a very large engineering team. That's probably 10x the size of their competition in Japan. It's not possible in Japan's market to build that kind of engineering team. But in Taiwan, you can. And you know what? We're fighting this technology-based business. So when you have better engineering capacity, that's your competitive advantage. So that's our thesis for Taiwan. But let me actually share with you guys what's happening in Japan next month. It's called IVS Kyoto 23. And next slide, please. End of June. So we are also this year bringing, well actually second year in a row, bringing regular Web 2 conference with Web 3 conference called IVS Crypto. And just to give you some sense, maybe some of you heard that people went to Okinawa last summer, had fun for IVS. So that was a 2,000 person event. This year, we are scaling this up to 10,000. This is going to be probably the largest tech events you can go to in Japan. There's, I think, couple of advantages for folks here. A, you'll see actually all the key people in Japan's tech industry, but there will be also investors. All major Japanese financial VCs, corporate VCs, even government VCs will be there. So you have actually plenty of opportunity to talk to all the people who are interested in this sector from Japan. And also, large number of corporates are going to be there and in Japan has changed in the last 5 years. Many of those corporates actually now do want to work with startups, and some of them already actually have familiarity working with Taiwanese startups. So there's an opportunity for you. Next slide, please. And actually, I should mention that thank you very much for 17 Live and Grand Tech for sponsoring us. But there are also many corporate sponsors. If you go back, to the last slide, which you have to do manually, sorry. These are some of the VCs for Web 2 sides, and then there's a previous one. This is all Web 3 VC. So whether you're doing crypto, Web 3 or Web 2 or both, you'll find some VCs. And a lot of those VCs are going to be setting up tables this year, and maybe there's a picture later that shows you image of what it might look like. Yes, this looks like people are drinking, but we actually had this kind of session last year in Okinawa. You'd be basically finding different VCs will have a different table. You'd be drinking and eating and pitching at the same time. That's what we offer in Kyoto. Let's keep going, please. And this year, we're also doing something very special. So when we decided to do Kyoto IVS, Kyoto government, both the city of Kyoto and the prefecture of Kyoto came to us. They wanted to do this together with us. And so in exchange, we asked them, we want to have some special places to have parties. That's usually not allowed. And so they opened up several venues that are actually World Heritage Site. One of it is this castle called Nijojo. That's an old Japanese ancient castle. And we are taking this over for a special evening party. And have you guys heard about this art installation group from Japan called Team Lab? Yeah, you guys are. So Team Lab is actually producing this party. So if you come to Kyoto, you get to enjoy this. And the only thing I request, this is a World Heritage Site, so please don't set it on fire. Because if you do, I'll be banned from Kyoto the rest of my life. Let's keep going. And we are also having something fun, apart from the Team Lab installation. So we are taking over 3 nights at the largest club in Kyoto called World. And this is actually run by a Japanese music label, Avex. And we are doing a special entertainment here with our Taiwanese partner, Our Song. Our Song is a Web3 project came out of KKBox. So we are actually on the final day, we're having a special party here. And the KKBox project, Our Song, is actually bringing Grammy Award-winning artists from overseas, Kimbra, and she'll be performing there. And there'll be also probably some Taiwanese beat makers joining this session. So I hope you guys can make it. This is on the last night of IVS. And apart from these, this year, we're going to have about 100 different side events. You can go for a morning run, meditation, and these kind of crazy parties at night. So there'll be plenty of things to keep you busy. And with that, I'm going to hand off to Guillaume to run the next session. But who's coming to Kyoto? All right, who's coming? So whoever's not coming, we have some interesting prize and offer to you guys, so stay tuned. And off to you, Guillaume.
So 2 minutes right before we start, I know you guys want to start the panel, but I just still want to give a little bit of a shout out to our partners that are SIT, BNext, and Meet Taipei, who have been a big partner at helping us taking startups and doing a whole Taiwan delegation of startups going to IVS. So if you can give them a big round of applause, thank you very much. So I think a month or 2 months ago, we started to think about, okay, for this event, we really wanted it to connect from IVS Beta to the main IVS event. And we have the Taiwan Delegation, where we bring startups. And we thought that the topic of this panel could be trying to understand how companies did it in the past as well. And so, because, well, our partners have nice connections, we were able to put this panel together of companies that are working at expanding to Japan. And so we had a pre-meet, and I threw out a few ideas of what that panel could be, and those conversations could be. And then today will be kind of like a summarized version of that first conversation, hopefully a bit more of a structured one. And one of the first things that really got me, so I was talking about, cultural identity, how do you change, how do you understand how, from Taiwan to Japan. And one of the first thing, maybe Alex, he can start with that, but you guys, all of you at the beginning, gave me a notion of time. Like as if time is a little bit happening differently in Japan. And maybe can you touch on, if startups here are interested to go to Japan, what could they expect? What was maybe one of the first shell shock moment that you guys had as a company or as a person going to Japan? Maybe Alex, because again, you were touching on time that's quite different there.
No, maybe I use yours. Yeah. I think for 17 Live, it's much easier for us because we already proven some of the stuff in Taiwan already, and it was easy for us to replicate really fast when we go into Japan. And on top of that, we have a very good partner, Akio and Joe, so it will be able to find us the right connection and the partnership. So very fast we can grow and scale up. So the things that we touch in Taiwan, the way how we run an event, the way how we monetize, how we test it first in Taiwan before we move to Japan. That's very crucial for any startup that want to go into the market in Japan. And like what Akio said, there's not a lot of engineering in Japan, so it's crucial you have a very solid engineering team based in Taiwan that can support you to scale up fast. Yeah. Anything, you guys?
So maybe if you could share some of the first, shell shock moment that you had trying to take your company to Japan. What was like a first, feedback that you got?
Yeah, for KKJ as a travel company, I think we're twofold. I think first of all, when we built up a lot of large user base outside of Japan, so we had a carrot to kind of bring in enter Japan to develop the Japan supply chain. We could bring in differentiated consumer base. So that's typically easier. But when we started to think about kind of actually landing in Japan, setting up our own entity, and actually building brand awareness and acquiring Japanese users, I think that's a whole different kind of ball game, right? And initially, still a lot of the Japanese stakeholders. Professional vendors don't know our company, right? And when we actually wanted to go and buy advertisement and go to an advertising agency to help us, develop brand awareness and acquire traffic, they actually turned down our business. We're giving them money. They turned down our business, right? I think in Japan, that was shocking. You bring in business, but they're like, we don't know you. Do you have an entity, right? Are you a registered company? So I think just going into Japan, it just takes a lot of, initially just spend time in building trust and some credibility and showing them you're committed to Japan, you have a physical office space. Those things I think are things that you could kind of do ahead, right? And develop this trust. I think everything kind of revolves around this trust, and that takes time. And it's not, you could sell your story, 10 times, but they just need time to just kind of digest that and build that trust and see you kind of carry through on what you said, right? Before they'll start doing, meaningful business with you. So that to us, that was kind of shocking, yeah.
Maybe you touch on
Huh.
you touched on the surf zone at the pre-meet, and maybe can you explain a little bit what's that concept in general?
Yeah, so we did our first field research in Japan for inline, trying to talk to some restaurants, not selling, just trying to understand how their operations were in 2019. And it was actually early 2019, so it was a little bit more than 4 full years ago, maybe like 4.2 years ago, something like that. And we did probably 20 trips, where we'd spend 3 or 4 days. There'd be a few people who would go, wasn't always the same people. We would bring a translator with us, and so we learned a whole bunch of things. There was like, okay, there's a bunch of things that are the same about how businesses and how restaurants in Japan operate that's similar to like every other country. And there's some things it's like, what the heck? Like, they need to record the gender of every single person who walks into a restaurant when you make a reservation. Like, there's no other country where that happens. So there's a whole bunch of things like that. So it took us a while to figure out, okay, we're not going to go in right away. Like, we need to understand, like, feature-wise, like sales process-wise. So our plan was, all right, we're going to go back once we can establish like a beachhead, right, sort of in the surf zone, and just get like a few customers, and then not hire any salespeople, and just not charge those customers, and just learn from them and say, like, you can beat us up as much as you want. Like, we're going to like build features for you. We're going to like work with you. We're going to give dedicated support to help you, just to get this small landing zone so that we can like, be there and begin to learn. And it wasn't until about 2.5 years later that we felt like we were ready to actually dial it up.
Right. And so the three of you right now just touched on, a very important subject, which is relationships, right? Building relationships. And to each of these companies, they did it in different ways. And maybe can you maybe delve a little bit more into details about some of the steps that you guys took into building those relationships? Because just networking,
every time I got rejected by a VC, I would say, okay, no worries. Do you know any guys in Japan you could introduce me to? So I probably asked 45 different firms for intros to VCs in Japan. And when I would reach out to them, I would say, we're not raising. I just want to meet you because we're going to want to be able to work with you possibly at some point in the future. And so it's like, it's like a funnel, right? It's like, didn't get a lot of intros. When I had the meetings, didn't get a lot of meetings, but had one or two that went pretty well, and then networked from there.
Right. Maybe you guys about like the way you build some really, again, different approach than what Alex did, which was very, underdog on the ground. But like, what are some of the approaches you guys took?
Well, I'll go to Akio.
Go to IVS.
Yeah. I mean, I think connection is essentially crucial for you. So the people that networking, things like that. But I think before 17 Live, I was actually doing some of the startup in gaming, and I think the most important thing I learned is not a joke. Okay, you actually need a very good pair of walking shoes in Japan, because you have to go knock on so many doors, and the taxi is very expensive. So a lot of subway, a lot of walking, and that's very crucial for the startup. Yep, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And very few Uber drivers.
Yeah, but back what I'm saying is that it's important to just keep trying. You have to keep trying, prove yourself that you're capable, and just you have to be sustainable and constantly trying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely having a good, credible Japanese investor can establish a lot of the initial door opening and credibility, right? But it's also chicken and egg. How do you convince that Japanese investors to actually invest in you? So for KKday, in the beginning, it was more, poking around, knowing within the travel industry who understands the travel industry, have access to Japanese investor base, right? So we found a local consultant. Obviously, he has pre-developed relationship that he could tap into, and you could hire on a local consultant. There's some motivation as well to help you open up doors, right? And then just developing that relationship with the local consultant, having him understand and believe in your business, that's a very important step too before they'll open up their resources as well. Also, complementing that is just kind of by referrals from Taiwan. I think there's other Taiwan business people that we know that knows Japanese related investors as well. So those things kind of reinforce that trust, right? You have multiple people, sounding off who KKday is. I think reinforce that trust, and that help us kind of open up more opportunities to access Japanese investors, and eventually we were able to get a Japanese investor to invest in us. Initially it was HIS, which is also in the same industry. That's another kind of angle as well. When you're when you're in travel industry, we have a lot of international travel products out there. HIS is one of the largest Japanese travel companies. Their main business is bring Japanese overseas, so they need a lot of outside Japan travel products as well. So there's a lot of complements. So just strategically kind of thinking about, what you can bring to the table to them as well, can help you kind of align these interests and close that deal, right? So just being smart and finding different ways. I think word of mouth and having people who understand you, can speak for you, can really reinforce and push that process along.
Potentially having a legal team there, or not just a legal team, but a team that you have to hire. So maybe can you touch on some of the strategies you had about being a KKday entity, maybe? Because I know you guys were very much into merger, for example, acquisition. and maybe touch a little bit on some of the hiring expectations that people should have. We won't go too far because it's a little bit grim, but still can you touch a little bit on what was your experience there?
Find a good HR director. No, I mean, we're fortunate because when we started to set up 17 Life in Japan, we actually initially find a very good person to help us to establish the team there. So thanks for Akio again. That so we were able to replicate really fast, and because that we kind of avoid a lot of the trap, that, so to speak, that you don't know the industry, you don't know the culture and things like that. So I think finding that person, your lead person, in Japan is very crucial. So.
And also maybe Alex, you touched on, so hiring in Japan maybe more selective hiring, because hiring in Japan is quite different than Taiwan.
I mean, different countries have different labor law, but in Japan it's a little bit strict. So you're not able to say, if this person is not working out, it's easy to let him go or whatever, right? So I think you have to be very selective, when you, and especially building up the brand new team at the beginning, you have to be very, very selective for each key member, function head you're hiring. So.
And maybe Victor, because you guys, it was very interesting the way you approached it with, doing the buying it instead of opening it. And can you maybe touch on, what was your strategy?
So it's twofold. I think we initially set up an entity, and setting up an entity is more a byproduct of your business need. Like some of the bigger suppliers, they want to sign with Japan entity, right? And it's more of a credibility or things like that. Kind of will trigger you to go and actually set that up. So initially we were doing more. Bringing in foreigners into Japan, and then we started gaining more traction with Japanese suppliers, and some of these suppliers, bigger ones, that they want to actually just deal with our Japanese entity, and they want to see your commitment in Japan. So that was the process of why we set up the entity. But like Alex said, I mean, setting up an entity, it becomes very formal. You got this entity, you got to understand Japanese law, and hiring people. I think hiring people is a very, very big commitment in Japan. They're very, very super focused on just labor laws, right? And just hiring them, and you're basically committed to them. Overtime work, you have to log. Every week, managers need to check if they're now working overtime. There's a very, very big commitment to just localizing in Japan. So we've been doing that. I think steadily ramping up. We have KKD. We have about 80 people on the ground in Japan now today. But to the point of hiring people, I think it's hard, especially in the beginning. It's also it's that trust factor again. They never heard of you. I think people would want to come join your company, right? Hiring people can be very expensive as well, right? If you go through headhunters, you get on paper the credentials are excellent, right? But once you hire them, 40% kind of their salary goes to headhunters. Can be very expensive, and if it's the wrong person, then you're kind of stuck with them. So those are things that you kind of weigh, between organic growth or we had an opportunity during COVID to actually acquire a Japanese domestic travel company called Activity Japan. So it was kind of good timing. It was travel industry was down, so valuation was quite low. Our other investors also know this company intimately, so we know it's somewhat kosher, and it was just a great way to acquire a asset with a 20 to 30 people kind of team that we felt like we could digest as well. So that's another way to kind of accelerate and ramp up, right?
So instead of building the
then you could do M&A as well. So be opportunistic out there.
I got to say, if there's one thing that any entrepreneur in the audience or somebody's going to be an entrepreneur in the future, and you're going to start an entity in Japan, just to reiterate on the point you made, it is not legal in Japan to fire somebody. Period. ever. You can do a PIP, doesn't matter. You can do the normal processes that are internationally recognized as being valid. Japanese courts say, we don't care. They're still your employee. If you want them to leave, you have to pay them off and buy them out to get them to leave. So be very wary about your hiring in Japan. This is why there are so many outsourcing employment agencies and all that. So all the things with timekeeping in Japan and logging your hours, people sort of like, we just sort of fake it. It's all taken super seriously in Japan because Taiwan inherited a lot of that law. So it's a small note, but it's an important note.
So, okay, you set up your business in Japan or you acquire another business, and then the next step would be, well, how do you scale that business, right? How do you make it having more presence? And again, during the pre-meet, the three of you had quite different strategies, from patience and retention to changing your mindset during COVID to just being the underdog. You maybe, Alex, maybe can start because 17 has a lot of competition in Japan, right? And it's not a trend right now of the digitalization. It's already there, right? So maybe can you help explain a little bit what are your strategies to scale the company that you're doing?
I think for us, we are much mature at this moment. And I think the challenge for us is that when you're first going to Japan, right, there's not much competitor there. So we're pretty much the only one live streaming. And, there's other, but they're tiny. So, and we were able to go rapidly fast, right? And because Taiwan already have pretty strong foundation to help us to go there. But now we have some of the competitors is coming up. TikTok's there, and there's another company called Pococha, is there. So I think you have to try to differentiate yourself from other competitors. So mainly what we do is, we're live streaming. We manage streamer, right? So what we do have to be very precise, like how we manage our talent. That's very important. And also how we manage our user. That's very important. So that's what makes us special compared to our competitor. And those policy and the way the structure, how it works, we started in Taiwan first. Then we implement that into Japan. So whatever that you're trying to do, trying to test it out, test it in the smaller market first and look at the data. And once it makes sense, you can scale up to our other market. So that's what I say at the beginning, like, you got to be able to try to test it in Taiwan and don't try to go so big at the beginning, right? Whatever you're trying to do, test it out, look at your data, look at your retention, look at your pay rate, look at your ARPU, all that stuff. Essentially is very important, right? And once you find a good strategy and that works, right, then you can invest a little bit bigger. This is how we move into Japan, and this is how we try to fight off our competitor right now. So, and on top of that, we're trying to go with the different type of content. We're going to a virtual liver. We started the gaming last year, and this has been giving us a lot of good growth strategy. So, in terms of other than live streaming.
Maybe, Victor,
Yeah.
how you had to maybe change your strategy during COVID.
Yeah. So, definitely COVID had an unprecedented impact on the travel industry. I think for us, we pivoted to domestic travel, and we were fortunate there was a good domestic travel company that was up for sale. So that was a way for us to kind of pivot into a new business and also scale very fast, right? With this company, we had 20, 30 new employees who understand the industry, have 4,000 domestic travel suppliers already on the platform, and had some good branding recognition with Japanese users. So I think that's one way. But obviously, with M&As, it's also very tricky, right? What are you exactly buying? If you buy the company, are you going to be able to retain the employees? I think most Japanese employees, if they don't really know this foreign company, will want to leave and go back to their parent company and whatnot. So those are things that I think, when we're doing the deal, we make sure we have these clauses that they cannot go back to the parent company for next year and so on and so forth. So little details, but M&A comes with different kind of evaluations and what are you actually buying, right? Kind of considerations. But yeah, I think scaling scaling in Japan, it's a ongoing process, and just kind of continue building your reputation. You want to find ways to differentiate with the local competitors. I think for a lot of Japanese local competitors, maybe they have as much presence internationally, so that's how we kind of differentiate ourselves. Like KKD has a lot of foreign users that we could bring in to local suppliers. KKD has a lot of foreign products we could bring into local Japanese users using our app, right? And those are things that you try to differentiate versus kind of going head on with the very entrenched local players that have very, very well connected local resources. Yeah.
Yeah, so scaling in Japan. We decided after our initial experiments that because Japan's quite large and there's a fair number of large cities, and that's pretty much where, that's where we focus, because that's where good restaurants are typically. They're not in the middle of the countryside, in the middle of nowhere, usually. We realized, okay, we don't want to just start in Tokyo and hire one salesperson and then see how they do and hire 2 salespeople and sort of grow organically from there. That'll take quite a while, right? So we decided pretty early on that we were going to try to acquire like some failing startup. So that was part of what I talked with a bunch of different investors there about, was like, hey, so Yoyakanote, like you guys are kind of dying. Could we buy you? And try to meet with a lot of different companies that didn't seem like they were doing very well. This was before the Great Reset in the VC world, so everybody still had a lot of confidence, even if they were down to 3 months of cash. So couldn't buy anybody. And then other things happened, and we ended up getting an investment from the U.S. company, Booking Holdings, and their subsidiary OpenTable. And I was like, hey, so how are you doing in Japan? They were like, oh, we've been pouring money into it for like 16 years, spent like $20 million in marketing there, and barely have any dent. And I was like, sweet. Sorry for you, but how about we buy those assets as part of the deal? And they were like, all right, cool. So instead of buying a local Japanese company, as you guys did, we bought the assets from OpenTable and got 500 customers, including Michelin-starred restaurants that way. So that was like one kind of quick way to get a kickstart, and then from there, build upwards.
Maybe back online. Maybe for the audience to understand a little bit, because obviously the 3 different companies are different states right now. To go back to time from now, when did you guys started to go to Japan? When did you, Jason, maybe when did you start to do your first trip experiment? And how long ago was that? And then where are you now? As a size of company or presence in Japan? Maybe.
Yeah, so we did our first experiments when we had about 10 engineers, and we had about 100,000 per month in MRR, monthly recurring subscription revenue. And we decided, let's not actually go in for reals until we have at least 10 million in cash in the bank.
Maybe Alex.
So Japan or the whole group?
From the moment you decided, okay, let's take a stab at Japan, and how long does the process until now, which isn't a finished process, but where are you now, and how long did you start basically?
I think we started in 2017, and because Taiwan was growing rapidly, and like Japan is about 2017, 2017, 2017, 17, and 17, 18, initially, I mean, doing the setup, but just again, we had a pretty solid foundation, and we know what we're doing, basically in Taiwan, and everything that we implemented into Japan, it works, and the rest is a history for us. Yeah. So, and I think important things like what Akio says, that if you are a startup, developing an app, you better have your engineering, either in Taiwan or somewhere else. It is very hard to find a good engineer over in Japan.
I found my picture during the 17 Live Japan opening 2017.
I was right. I was right. Yeah. So. Yeah, so I mean, and we see the revenue, which is like the first year, and it's about like 10x growth the next year, and we just stop ramping up real fast, and I think and now it's in the mature stage, but we're still trying to grow, a little bit more over in Japan.
What about KKD?
It was natural. KKD, we started in 2014, and we entered 2016 or so in Japan. After we've gotten some traction with, Taiwanese users using our app, and they're doing a lot of international travel, particularly to Japan, through KKD app and website. Then we have the carrot, and we started kind of bringing in this kind of consumer base and helping us open up doors with the supplier base. And then COVID hit, and then international travel shut down, and we had to kind of reimagine and recreate our business. So there was very fortunate there was that asset, right? We pivoted our international business team to domestic travel, right? And that was a big reorganizational change, and 0 to 1 again through that process. But then I think what really accelerated that process was just being opportunistic and having that acquisition target that we were fortunate to be able to identify it and negotiate and actually take control, right? So that was a very important part of the how we kind of pivoted and then created a new business out there.
Right, and to piggyback on that, so you guys all talked about the fact that it's difficult to have hassle in Japan. If you go there not really prepared, you might get into quite a bit of trouble or big disappointment. And Jason, because we touched on it a minute ago, you touched on having 10 billion in the bank. So maybe my next question is, if startups here are interested to go to Japan, what kind of purse they should kind of like prepare to spend on having a real stab at Japan? And if they don't have that cash in the bank, well, what could be the other things that they do?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can always just tick off the box in the App Store for Japan, right? And be like, hey, we're launched, but you're not really launched, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, it totally depends on what kind of business you're in, but we're in a B2B business, and we don't get, like, there's no company in our space in any country of the world that gets most of their new customers through online acquisition. It's almost all field sales. So if you're in any business that requires field sales as a significant component, that's why it's like you got to have, let's say, at least 10 mil, in cash in the bank, and ideally more, in order to have a hope of being able to have any impacts in Japan at all. Just because you're going to need people, and you're going to need a legal entity. You're going to be paying lawyers' fees that are about 3 times more per hour than they are in Taiwan. You're going to be paying the people about 2.5 times as much in salary as they get in Taiwan. You're going to be paying the commuting fees for them back and forth to the office. You're going to be paying more for the real estate. It's like everything costs more. So everything just eats a lot of cash, and the population is 3.5 times larger, and it's a very competitive market for everything. It's pretty mature in a lot of areas, except live streaming in 2017.
And so, if some of the startups here tonight don't have that money in the cash, but still want to, try to understand the ecosystem better, what are the things they can start to do?
Go and learn.
Take a flight. Take a flight ticket to IVS, maybe. Maybe Alex or Victor, some of the, do you guys want to venture a number, or
Well, I say, right, you got to have that passion first, right? So you got to believe what you're doing, right? That's important, right? And second, you're going to start small, right? So, Japan, is not an easy market, but it's a massive market, right? So what Akio say, right? China is not a way you can go right now, and the U.S. costs more to go into it, right? So I think you test it out again. Back to what I'm saying, test it out in Taiwan, because in terms of the culture, we're kind of similar. So my personal experience, I've been working there for a long time right now. So I think you guys grow up, reading the comic book, the manga, all that stuff. So we grow up watching Japanese stuff, right? So we kind of know their culture. So find out what's going to drive, right? And test out the data. Start us small, right? And have your foundation, in Taiwan. So your engineer or your product team here, mainly find find a person a Japanese person that can help you run the operation over there, you know. So that will reduce your costs a lot. And slowly, then while you're doing the testing, start pitching to the VC, you know, get more data to it. You know, I think just you just gonna have keep trying. You know, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, nothing's easy, right? So, but if you stop trying, you know, it's not gonna happen. You know, I mean, we try. You know, we try a lot of stuff, but you know, some work, some fail, right? So.
I have actually one advice. Don't listen to Japanese people's advice. So this is what happened. When we were first thinking about taking 17 to Japan, I actually asked my VC friends in Japan, right, oh, do you think it's going to be successful? They all said no. You know, people in Taiwan may not be shy. People in Japan are too shy. No one's going to live stream. Right. So I talked to like 5-6 investors. They all thought it was a really bad idea. Well, what we didn't know is it was far bigger market, and there's so many young people in Japan who are willing to come live with us. So people in Japan might have their own preconceptions, which is not always right. So do your own research. Don't trust their word.
Just trust Akio.
Myself included, I might give you, feedback on this. This will never work. But don't trust my word. You have to try it out.
Keep trying, right? So to reflect that, right? So we're there for a couple of years now. So at the beginning, you know, a lot of big brands didn't want to work with us, right? So but we have been trying really hard, you know, for it. But now, like we signing on big names like Capcom, Sega, you know, they all want to work with us. So you're just gonna take your time and really be focused about promoting your brand. You know, like live streaming wasn't pretty at the beginning, right? They're like, hey, what are you doing, man? It's a gifting business, man. This is not good, right? But, you know, people are very adapt to this type of lifestyle right now, right? They're easy to make money, right? We just had a big launch on I think Osaka TV. They just did a full cover on us. So it's a mom that taking care of the kid at home and doing live streaming and making a lot of money. You know, this actually is helping out the economy, right? And thanks for Taiwan, right? We actually brought this over to Japan. So, you know, think big and, you know, think what you want to do and try to bring it over. You know, don't let people tell you now what to do. You know, do what you think is right.
On that point, maybe Jason, you want to explain, you know, the whole strategy of inline is to be the underdog until they cannot do it without you. Can you touch a little bit on, you know, how that has worked in Japan? Because you are kind of like on the verge of getting to those big leagues.
Yeah, so we don't have a consumer brand. I mean, in Taiwan, like a lot of people know the name Inline because if you go to a nice restaurant, you're probably going to make a booking through the Inline website that the restaurant runs. So in Taiwan, it's sort of an unusual situation. In the 6 other countries that we're in, like, nobody knows our brand. But we have like 500 good restaurants in, like, you know, Melbourne and Brisbane and Singapore and Kuala Lumpur and all these other places. But, like, people don't know our brand. But in Taiwan, people know our brand. So it's a bit unusual because I have to explain to people in Taiwan, like, in every other country, nobody has any idea who we are. And that's kind of what we're going for. Because we're trying to be middleware for like the whole industry, to like aggregate all the bookings from all the restaurants and then be integrated with like all of the leading consumer apps in each country, in the whole region, and then globally, so that we are the channel manager. We're like the clearinghouse for all the booking inventory, and now also all the food orders. So we integrate all the food orders from Foodpanda and Deliveroo and Uber Eats and all these guys. Into one spot. So it's like that's our play is to be pure tools and SaaS at that level, and that makes it hard when you go into a new country. They're like, who are you? And it's like, well, you haven't heard of us, but we're really big in these other countries. It's like, right. And so we have to like prove it with evidence of like, no, like all these famous restaurants here, like we're like a real company. So the underdog strategy for us is kind of like something that it's in every country we go into. But in Japan, it's especially true because we now compete less against Taiwanese companies and less against Eastern Asian companies in general. But we're kind of at the point now where we compete with like the 3 or 4 best in the world, and one of those happens to be based in Japan. And so we have to grow in Japan while they also try to come into Taiwan. So we're both we're both fighting a nice, fun battle right now. And we're arguably slightly the underdog, even though they're not quite as geographically dispersed as we are, but they've got this great presence in Japan. So yeah, we're trying to grow our business through partners, right? So through Google, through TripAdvisor, through OpenTable, through Instagram. We're really good partners with Instagram. Like you can book through the Instagram app directly without leaving it. There's like native integrations, and there's all these fun things that we do with them. So it's an interesting strategy. And so for us, the kind of bit unique is that in our space, it just happens that Japan is where there's this one of the three major global players. So that's another reason why we didn't go there too early, was we had to be strong enough to compete against the best in their own territory.
So I really want to make sure I leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So if you guys have questions, the three panelists are going to stay here, and then there's still a bit of time for networking afterwards. But I do like to kind of like end those conversations with one question that's kind of like the do-over question, right? So knowing what you know now, some people here might be quite interested to, well, start, right? So knowing what you know now, and maybe Victor, we can start with you. Maybe can you share something you would be different? Inside is 2020. What would be something you would do differently? Knowing what you went through, and of course difficult to predict COVID. But what could you share with the audience that one of the learnings that you had on the way?
Yeah, I mean, everything just takes more time in Japan. So definitely plan ahead, develop relationship, gain some credibility, right? That all takes time before. And then investment-wise, you definitely don't just invest right away in everything, right? It's a step-by-step process. I think for KKday, we're a 9-year-old company. There's a lot of other things that we're planning ahead for the company as well, right? So in terms of think about accessing more Japanese capital and such, that's a very, very key process. Japanese government and investors see Japanese company, and it is a lot of the and then if you are committed in this Japanese market, do plan that ahead, like the prior 2-3 kind of process, right? And hiring the right people and getting the right people and building that trust and alignment with them takes time as well, right? So Japan is something that you probably can't just manage overseas. If you want to really succeed in Japan, you got to be committed and building that foundation there. And just from setting up the building of the business, gaining trust, hiring the right people, meeting all the different government regulations, very, very tedious, very, very tedious. And then just, yeah, it's plan ahead. Yeah.
Jason, you had a tip about meeting failed founders. Maybe you can expand on
Yeah, the failed founders. I'll get to that in a second. But one thing I can say for sure that I would definitely change was, in every other country we've gone into, we've always taken this approach of we will send people into the country to go launch. And this is a pretty established pattern for when large brands like Uber go and or other brands go. They'll send a person there and there'll be a launcher. So you see these jobs listed. That's what we do normally. We had all of this feedback, and we had all these cultural expectations that Japan was just so different that we shouldn't do that. We should just only hire local people. That has been bumpy. So we had a bit of a reset about 6 months ago, and so that's the thing that I would change is, yes, of course, Japan is a very unique country. It's very proud. It's very well established, great economy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we over-rotated, and so it's like it was important to. This turned out to be important. And this is what I would change, is put our own people on the ground there and keep them on the ground from day one, to have our company's DNA there while everything is starting to grow. So, yeah.
Maybe a tip for Alex, a do-over question, something you would do differently if you were to do it all over again.
I think the biggest lesson learned is that with the communication between the two teams. So you have the product engineering in Taiwan, then you have the operation over there, right? So I think what I would make a little bit different is that we probably need to bring this team more engaged together, So I think the people doesn't understand that what the operation team is facing over there. So sometimes when they do a feature or do a release, it's not really helping, the operation people on the ground. So I think, we're making a lot of change right now. We recently had a little reorg in terms of the live operation and the product team. So I think that's something that is also for folks wanted to have the engineering team in Taiwan and the operation team here. You really need to have a very good communication,
Well, again, thank you so much. We will run a Q&A, but can you please help me to give a big round of applause for these guys for the talk. I'll be the one running the mic. Do we have a question in the assembly? It can be for all three panelists or just one panelist in general. Anybody with a question?
Hi, you guys entered the small startups going to Japan, which city would be a better option because your landing cost and as you guys said, it takes a long time to establish credit and get registered. So and each city Japan is also very different. Kyoto and Tokyo are very different. So which city would you suggest or think would be a better idea for startups, younger startups, to enter the Japanese market?
I think I'd probably still choose Tokyo. Yeah, I mean a little bit expensive, but everything's there. That's where the center of the attention is. So I think I would probably still pick Tokyo. And Osaka is more like a tourism. Kind of Kyoto is more culture. Things like that. Let's go Tokyo. Tokyo is better.
Unless there's some industry reason not to, default Tokyo.
Yeah, same.
Anybody else has a question? All right.
My name is Brian. I'm the co-founder of Super Day. We are the messaging CRM, leading message CRM player in Taiwan. So I have one question for all of the panel speakers. What would be your first hire in Japan? What would be the reason behind this? And the second question is for Jason, because we are all like B2B like a SaaS startup. So what would be what do you think would be the best like GTM like go-to-market strategy for a B2B startup?
So my hire is probably the GM that you're going to help you to launch your operation there. So and this person can help you to find other people. So somebody has a good credibility and know the industry and understand your product. That's crucial, right? So yeah. So GM is somebody you need to look for first.
For us, probably there's a lot of Japanese talent in Taiwan in the headquarters. So we may be developing a pool of Japanese talents that eventually want to go back to Japan, right? They could communicate language-wise, not an issue. Spending time in the headquarters to understand the culture and our strategy. I think that just aligning that and setting that core seed of team to help you expand would be, from our experience, that's how we did. And then once you're landed in Japan, then you're going to be working with a lot of different stakeholders, and then there'll be talents that you approach within the industry as well. Then through that process, if you feel comfortable enough, then you could bring in probably more senior people, Japanese people as well. I think that talent is very important to take time to kind of understand, and then like especially in Japan, you're fully committed to this person as well.
First person for us would be like a launcher from Taiwan who's, speak Chinese, and it'd be great if they could speak Japanese, but it's kind of rare. So Japanese and Chinese, but for us, like that'd be the first hire. A person from here, your company, go there and get them a work visa. And the SaaS thing, shortcut answer. Just do what Respond.io is doing, which they're invested in. The reason that is because like I was there and we worked with them for like a while back, about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. They first got started, and I mean they've grown like gangbusters. So obviously, what they're doing works.
Anybody else? Yes.
For us, depends on whether that's your biggest market or not. So you want to devote it to it, right? So if that's your biggest market, you know, I say put all your heart into it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've like done some localization, but there's been, especially with SaaS tools, there's like a lot of homegrown stuff that's like 20 years old there. People have been using for ages. It's got this inspired by like Windows UI controls from like 1997. So it's kind of like, it's like, okay, yeah, I understand it doesn't look the same as this old NEC crap that you're using, but like, it's okay, man. Just like roll with it. Like, more consumery is good. So.
Our business is consumer facing, so we user interface we do localize. I think just the language. I think Japanese are very particular. You can't just Google Translate. I think everything, the product you're selling to the consumer needs to be quite kosher in Japanese language. Call center services need native Japanese people to be servicing them and knowing the etiquettes of how to communicate. Local payments, right, I think it certainly is an important advantage as well. So from our standpoint, these points need to be quite localized to kind of gain that trust and comfort, you know, from the consumer. I mean, from a business standpoint, obviously, you know, very good. I think borders are opening, and Japan is one of the hottest destinations, right? That's perceived to be safe, and people, all foreigners are going into Japan. So from our perspective, business has been booming, right? I think we have been particular beneficiaries of this border opening because we were able to pivot to domestic travel the last 3 years. So our brand, our user base have been active using our domestic travel products. When border opened, you know, as an internet platform, you could immediately cross-sell, right, international products, international travel products. So it's actually, for travel industry, it's a golden opportunity right now. A lot of the traditional travel agencies have died out or cut back materially, right? They don't have the storefronts and people. So for us, I think it's a very great inflection point to take market share. So just from a business standpoint, I think that's been a big change. I think in Japan, during this last 3 years too, particularly, I think COVID also impacted a lot of businesses as well, right? So Japan is very traditional. I think because of the COVID impact, business have been hit really bad. So there's actually, everybody is forward-looking, wanting to digitalize. So digital transformation is a very key theme in Japan, right? So we've been a lot of provincial government want to help their supplier, the merchants, digitalize in their prefectures, right? So I think that's been a very good source for us to just work with local governments, show our digital solutions, and then, you know, in a relatively more scalable way, you could access a lot of supplier chain and the government vouching and pushing that. They have budget as well to give you, right, and so on and so forth. So it's been, you know, COVID in some ways, it's been a blessing in disguise, right? And we're survivors of it. I think there's more opportunities going forward. Yeah.
All right. Well, again, so all the panelists are going to stay here. Well, not here, but you know, for another at least half an hour. I hope that you can give us a little bit more time. There's still more food, a few drinks if you want. So please stay here. Spend some time to network, meet the people that you might want to connect with. And yeah, again, thank you so much for you guys to giving us your time. And
By the way, there's a live stream. Oh, really?